Hello, and let's get on with it. Here are some PvP tips when playing Gloria Victis. Now, bear in mind, these are the group PvP tips, not dueling, because dueling is a different matter. You have to be good at quick time events for that. So let's start with the first thing is prepare. Like, before we go into equipment, let's go into game settings. You can test your game, see how good it runs, and you actually want to keep it running as smoothly as you can, like 60 FPS or so. I currently have it on 30, but that's because YouTube doesn't let you choose. So try to keep it as smooth as possible. And if you think it's running smooth now, then when there's a big fight with tens or maybe even hundreds of players, it's going to go down eventually. So before a big fight, a good idea to prepare is to go into your settings and set it to very low. With one exception, go in the character's display distance. Put that on high because that's actually pretty important. So yeah, do that for your settings, and obviously make sure to run at 60 FPS minimum, because it is better to run a game looking like this, but have it smooth rather than having it look good but clunky, because it will actually affect your performance a big deal. And also, when you have it low as this, there's less distractions for you, so that might be even better. But for now, let's put it back to where it was before. Alright, so now let's go to equipment. You want to have as many weapon types as you can. I mean, different damage types. There's piercing, slashing, and bludgeoning damaging weapons. So you want to have at least one of those. In my ideal warrior, probably every character that I would have a similar setup, is that I will have my 200 sword at 1, because this is like the most versatile weapon in the game. So when you're attacking, you always deal some damage, like 30% damage to medium and heavy armored folk will deal more damage, much more damage to light armored, and it's fast, it's got good range, and it's a good weapon. And I will have a bow at my second slot, and even on a heavy armored guy like this, I will still keep my bow, to slow down runners, for example, or shoot down those pesky ballistas. Yeah, bow is a useful tool, so always have it on you. Doesn't matter that your damage that you're doing with it is 20%. I mean, still interrupts, it still slows down, and it still damages the ballista. Like if there's 50 heavy armored guys, and none of them shoots, it's doing nothing. But 50 guys, heavy armored guys, shooting at the ballista, that's quite some damage. So, if a call has been made to shoot at the ballistas, then you have an option. And at the third slot, I would have a 100 weapon, and in this case, the bludgeoning mace. Mace, because you can use a sword or a dagger if you're an archer in this slot, but I like to have mace because, it damages heavy armored guys a lot, and it always deals some damage to all the other armored types, so I prefer it. It's a personal preference, but I do actually recommend it. At fourth slot, I would have either halberd or the Hodun spear, or a regular spear, as the length of the Hodun and regular spear has been adjusted so that the Hodun spear is a bit shorter, while the normal spears are a bit longer. So, have one of those in here. That's when you're in the second line of any fight, and you'll have an option to reach, just to keep dealing damage to an enemy from behind the back of your ally. Next I would have my 200 hammer. Now this used to be a pilgrim staff, but it has been rebalanced, and 200 hammers are rightfully back at the best 200 bludgeoning weapon place. So yeah, use that. They have a longer reach now. They're still expensive, but they're worth it. Heavy armored guys are gonna feel the pain when you swing that at them. At number 6 slot, I would have either a spear or gizam, ideally. Well, first, it is a very long reach weapon, so it's good. And second, it does piercing damage, both in thrust and in swings. So if I see the guy wearing medium armor, that would be the weapon I would most likely pull out to fight him. At my 7th slot, I would have an axe, and this is basically just to bash down the door if needs come to be, but also we can still chop some wood with it, right? Yeah. At slot number 8, I would have water. Because you can pour water on people that have oil dropped on them, and you will extinguish the DPS effect that they have, and damage reduction. Like, even if you get hit by falling logs, you have the damage reduction for a few seconds. You can pour water on you and it will go away. So yeah, this will remove some of the negative effects during the siege. At number 9 slot, obviously bandages, because you should always have them. It's like the ABC of being prepared to fight. Have some bandages. Could be simple compresses as well, obviously, but we'll have some healing things in there. And at the last slot, I would have the stamina drink. Either have a stamina increasing drink or the stamina regeneration drinks in there, because well, stamina regeneration also affects the cost of running. So when it comes to running or maybe swimming, it's basically the same thing if you increase the maximum stamina or the stamina regeneration. So that will be for prepare. Now, next thing is kiting or pushing, basically distance. When you're fighting, you will see that the different weapons have the different range. Like, for example, I take this 100 mace out, and when you swing it, you can see that the range is very short. And if I would have a dagger, actually I do have a dagger. If you have a dagger, like, you will see that it's very, very, very short. And if you take a thing like a gizam, the rear reach is awesome. 200 sword. It's also very far reaching. But all the weapons basically have the different range. And the mention here is that the axes have been shortened. They used to have better range than a 200 sword, but it's not the case anymore. So a shout out to this. And when you're fighting an enemy, like, always pay attention to what weapon is he using and compare it with yours, and then see if you are using the shorter or the longer weapon, because this will affect your strategy. For you should be either kiting or pushing. Like, if the enemy has like a gizam and you have a 100 mace, you want to be pushing toward him at all times to get in the range. And at the other side of this, when you have a long ranging weapon, then you want to be keeping your distance, because then a lot of hits might be evaded by running backwards, moving backwards, and just you can basically swing your weapon at an enemy. Well, would be awesome if you would be able to swing an enemy, but yeah, no, swing your weapon at an enemy. while still being at the safe distance. So yeah, that's kiting for you. And when we are at the topic of kiting, bear in mind this. Let me move the camera back a bit. When you're strafing left and right, you're actually moving slower than if you would be doing this. So in a group situation, when you're actually trying to move around, keep that in mind. Moving between the enemies, don't strafe too much, because it's not very efficient. You're moving slower when you're strafing than when you're moving forward. So ideally you want to be moving forward most of the time and just adjust your direction with your mouse. So next thing is the field of view, because it's your awareness. You want to be aware what things are happening around you, right? Like, let's say this guy here. Let's just say that he's an archer that's trying to shoot you, and you are just barely just don't see it. But when you go into options, there's the field of view slider. I don't remember it being there before, but if it's here, I will put it as much as I can. And look at this. All of a sudden you can almost see him. Now if I just look at it the other way around, I can see him now, but when I put the field of view slider back, I don't see him anymore. So yeah, that's some extra field of view for you. Keep that in mind. You kinda have to get used to it for a bit, but it's not really that big. You can't really adjust your field of view to the extreme. So just keep that in mind. You will see more when you put the field of view. So as we are on it, then let's get to blocking, and let's start with a shield. Now with your shield, you don't really have to adjust the block direction. You only have to block, and in melee, if you're facing your opponent or he's within 180 degrees in front of you, you will block the blow coming to you. But what you can adjust with your shield is you can either put it up and protect your head from arrows, from those pesky bowmen or archers, or you can put it down and protect your feet for some reason, right? Now you really don't want to be doing that against archers, but in melee you will see people doing that a lot, and some of you wonder, why are they doing that? And the reason is this. When you look down, you have a very good 360 degrees view of your surroundings. So if there's an enemy swinging his weapon at the back of you, you can, like, block it all. You have like a perfect view that a normal human being does not. So keep it like this, and you'll be able to see the enemy coming and blocking, because, well, see the enemy coming and you can block them. So that's very useful. But when you have a 200 weapon out, it's different, because you actually have to block in a direction that the enemy is attacking you from. But in a group fights, normally in a duel, you would really want to have your blocks bound at the keys at this point, because as I've already said it before, it is a bit clunky in here when it comes to directions using your mouse, and especially if someone's feinting an attack, like trying to attack you, say, from the up, and then interrupting it and attacking from the side instead. Sometimes it's very hard to switch direction of block, because when you're just using one directions, it's much easier if you have them on the keybinds. Trust me on this one. And well, the same actually goes for attacks, and well, let's hope this will be fixed, because it's pretty sad if the dueling is basically a quick time PvP event. Alright, so that's about that. And also when you're blocking and during the kiting, also sometimes consider evading an enemy. Like you know you're at the very reach of the weapon. Sometimes you might just move out of the way, and then you'll have a perfect opportunity to counter. So yeah, that's the thing to learn as you go. Next would be timing. You swinging your weapon, the bar will appear and will go from green to yellow to red. Then if you keep it out for too long, as I'm doing right now, it will go down to nothing again. You want to be attacking at yellow, like most of the time, and like almost all the time in a group fight. You want to be attacking at yellow, because when you go to red, there is no difference in damage, and well, it does take more time to get there, and it will drain more stamina, because when you keep your weapon like this, your stamina will drain. So the most efficient way would be to attack at yellow. And yeah, perks like Strongman, for example, says that the damage dealt at full power. Yellow means full power in melee, with melee. So attack on yellow, because when you're attacking on green and someone blocks it, you will stagger. And don't get me wrong, there are some situations when you actually do want to attack on green, as in, let's say you have a faster weapon and you see he just started a swing, or maybe you both started at the same time. It might be beneficial to attack him sooner and interrupt his attack with it. So yeah, timing is very important. And when it comes to bashing the gates also, it's a normal melee strike, so attack on yellow and use your axe for this. Well, ideally you want to be using battering ram, obviously, but if there is none around and you actually do want to bash some gates, or maybe just doors, and use an axe and attack on yellow. And it doesn't really matter if you're attacking from overhead or from side, it's still gonna deal the same amount of damage, even though the axe says that it deals 20% more damage on the overhead swing. This only applies to attacking humans, like players or animals, basically enemies, hostiles. But when it comes to door, it doesn't really matter if you're attacking overhead or sides. The only advantage of attacking overhead is that if you don't have the Reaper and there's too many allies to the side of you, you might hit your ally instead, and then it will not follow through to the door. The attack will not follow through to the door. So there's that. Next will be, where do I have it? Kicking, right? Yeah, that's a very important skill in PvP, because when someone's blocking, whether it's with the shield or a two-handed weapon, if you kick it with the default key for that is Q. If you kick him during that, then he will stagger and allow you to quickly attack him. Now, bear in mind that you really have to be quick. Right after the kick, if he staggers, you really need to attack immediately, or he will have enough time for the stagger to go away and he will block you. So also keep that in mind. And there is something I see that a lot of people will do a mistake in a group fight. When, for example, there will be like this one guy that's putting the shield up and he's blocking everybody and moving backwards and basically blocking people. And you don't want to be like, let's just say it's that guy, but you don't want to be like moving toward him and starting to kick him, because he will be moving backwards and most likely he will avoid that kick. What you want to do is you want to move slightly in front of him and kick the space in front, as is man, it will actually be at his back if he's moving backwards, but basically kick where he is going to be instead of where is he now. So yeah, that's lag mechanics for you basically, but it's you will hit most of the time if you do it like this. And also remember, when you are attacking a person who's moving with a shield, backing up, don't be the one that just mashes the key and hopes to get a swing in, because at some point someone might actually kick him, might stagger him, and then instead of say getting an overhead swing from a full overhead swing from a hammer in the head, he's gonna receive your puny stab in a chest for basically no damage, and he will start blocking again. So yeah, keep the timing in mind. Again, attack when the attack will matter, especially in a group fight, and especially with 200 weapons, because of Reaper. When you're attacking at yellow, you will hit more than one enemy if you're lucky. The next thing is jumping. Don't jump. That's pure and simple. If you jump, your stamina will go away very quickly, as you can see. And when you jump, you won't be able to sprint. Like, let's say we're sprinting now, we're jumping, we will be moving slower for a bit. So yeah, that actually slows you down. So it's a good idea not to jump at all. Except for maybe some extreme situations, like you're out of stamina anyway and out of health and you're gonna die. You might as well just try to annoy the enemies with your jumping. And the reason for that is the next point, is fighting on a slope. When an enemy is above you, like if there would be an enemy standing up there on the stairs, basically on a higher ground, there is much chance that you will miss. And it's I think it's something to do with the mechanics of the game. But basically, even if you see that you are attacking him, most of the time you will miss, while when you are over an enemy, you will always hit. So, if you're fighting an enemy on a slope, you're moving around each other, dueling and stuff, just try to make sure you are always at the higher ground, because there is a lot of chance that he will miss and you will hit at all times. So yeah, keep the higher ground. Fighting on the slopes, especially in the wilds now. There is not really many slopes in here, but in the wilds there will be, like even a small slope like that. Keeping this tiny detail in mind might mean that enemy will even like this, the sword will go through him, but the hit will not connect, because the game works like that currently. So even if there's only a slight chance that it will happen, it's still an advantage, and you should keep that in mind. And the last but not least of the PvP tips is the responsiveness and awareness. When you go into a group fight, there should be a leader, and always do what he's saying. If you're fighting an enemy and you hear that he's shouting for everybody to fall back, fall the hell back, because even if the entire party is retreating, so even if you do manage to kill the guy, what is the advantage of that? He's gonna fall down, you're not gonna loot him because there's his allies around. They're just gonna pick him up, resurrect him. You basically gained nothing. So if they tell you to fall back, fall back. And the same thing about attacking and standing ground, everything really. It's like you are fighting as a unit. You're not an individual skirmisher, unless you are a skirmisher and do whatever you want. But if you are a part of the group, the cohesion is more important than your personal skills. So if the entire party will do exactly fight as a one mind, which is usually the leader's mind, but if they do it together, it's much more efficient and effective than being a bunch of individuals. And awareness in the responsiveness is also when when you are fighting, like the leader is not going to tell you like direction of swinging or how you are supposed to fight a particular enemy. You need some of your own brain work during that. So first of all, know your place, like know your role. Maybe know your place is not a good word for that. Know your role. If you're a heavy guy, then you know you want to be at the front line and just trying to push the front line forward, like keep blocking, keep kicking, hitting. Just you're basically in the thick of it, and block, kick, hit, try to push the line forward. If you're a warrior, however, like probably might be wearing something lighter than full heavy, but some warriors wear full heavy anyway. You don't want to be like standing in the front line. Maybe you do want to be like swinging from behind your tanks with your long reach weapon like halberd or a gizam. But you want to be also aware of the enemy's backline, because sometimes you might see some vulnerable targets like separating or maybe coming too close. It might be a good idea to stop fighting on the front line and like run to the back and scare them away, hit them, or maybe just run to the back and start using the Reaper abilities on the enemy's backline. That deals a lot of damage. So yeah, and same thing with if you're an archer, like there's a full front line of fighters fighting, but like a majority of your view of the battlefield is the back of your allies, and the enemies are standing with their shields in front of you. If it's in an open field, maybe try to flank them a bit, like move to the sides where you have some better views of the enemies, and then shoot them at the side or maybe at the back. Or if you are an archer, not a bowman, maybe you might want maybe you don't have a good point of shooting the arrows, and take your two-handed sword out, run into the backs and start swinging away, then maybe move back, move in, move back, like do some skirmish. Like keep in mind, if you're in light armor, you don't have any damage penalties. Basically, you will do a lot of damage, and if you have a lot of dexterity, you will do a lot of damage with swords. So yeah, make use of that. And well, above else, be responsive. I'm sorry, not responsible. Be responsive. Like when the leader calls out an order, just follow it. Just follow it. Even if you're not a very good duelist, even if you're a fresh player, not a veteran, you're not very good at this game yet, you're gonna follow what you've been told. You're gonna be okay. Well, at least you're gonna be appreciated for it. So yeah, that will be it for the PvP tips for group fights in Gloria Victis. So thanks for watching, and bye.